The time has come for the Monday, August 5th, 2019, Code Revisions, Appeals, and Negotiations. Roll call, please. Right here. Present.
Alderman Bolton?
Present.
Alderman Florian?
Present.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Present.
Alderman Mosio?
Here.
Okay. New business, item A, we're gonna hold
No,
that.
we don't need to do that tonight.
All right, that one right there would be moved to another time. Item B, motion by Alderman Kirkwood, second by Alderman Mosio, to amend the city liquor and video gaming codes by repealing location restriction. Are there any questions to the motion?
Yes.
Alderman Florian.
I do not believe we should repeal this without something to replace it. I just think we've started the downtown entertainment district recently, which does exactly this, and I think we should give that a chance to see how that plays out before we do it throughout our entire city. I just think it's wise of us to wait on this matter.
Okay. Any other questions?
People know my philosophy on the distance requirement, but we do need to regulate it some way, and we've been going on about this for 2 years on how to regulate it, and obviously distance is not effective because every council meeting we have somebody that comes up here and wants a waiver because it's easy money for the businesses. So I would like to regulate it somehow, but to me, distance, then you get in that whole spider web of, is it property line to property line? Is it the building to the building? You know, I mean, we had the whole thing with Thornton's. Thornton's on that whole corner, so you go from Thornton's property line to 1,500 feet. I mean, that's forever, and the actual building sits on the corner. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a constant wrangle of how do you want to regulate it? I don't know.
Couldn't we just say the center of the property? I mean,
No.
that seems easy enough.
Unfortunately, no matter what you do, you do have the and I don't mean to intrude into the discussion on policy, but you do have the state law that has differing methods of how you're supposed to do the measurements according to the state. In some instances, it's property line to property line. In others, it's portal to portal, door to door, if you will. Some it's to the closest point of the buildings that are on the property. Why they have it set up like that, it doesn't make any sense, but they do. So
How does that vary, though? Like, I mean, what do you mean? How do they decide? It's not just all liquor or all gaming? Like, what?
we have a chart that Douglas put together a couple of months back, which kind of breaks out a little bit about how the delineation works. Like for churches, for example, I believe that one's property line to property line. Why don't you just give us the breakdown? You're standing there and just looked at it.
I don't actually have the breakdown in front of me, but I can recall a couple of good examples. So for instance, when you're dealing with liquor from a distance from a school, it's property line to property line. If you're looking at a church, it's the closest point on the building used for worship or educational services to the closest point on the potential licensee's building. So, I mean, the statutes vary widely, the case law varies widely, but it's really, it depends on each individual type of business and which type of license they're applying for.
But we can't override the state statute.
We can't override the state statute, and that's what Bob was just discussing with you. What we've done is initially we tried to establish one set of common rules by saying all businesses have to be 100 feet or 400 feet. But that seems to not be the direction that this council wants to go, and so the request was to repeal those requirements and go with what the state's requirements were.
And to me, it gets back to the issue of why does this person get it, and if I'm a new business owner, why don't I get it? Why? Because they beat me to the punch? That's why they get it, and I can't have it because I'm within the distance requirement of this allows me to have it. You know, and I get it, it's a wrangle, it's a real, what do you do? I mean, what do you do? Corporation council have talked, maybe we put a square footage on it. You have to have so much square footage in order to be able to operate an establishment that's gonna have gaming in it. I don't know. I've been up here 3 years trying to figure out how to regulate it. I just don't think distance is the right way to do it. It just doesn't, like you said, every 2 weeks we got something coming up with it. You got to tell somebody, nah, you can't have it because the guy next to you got here before you did. It just doesn't sit well with me.
Any more questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton?
Aye.
Alderman Florian?
No.
Alderman Kirkwood?
Aye.
Alderman Mozio?
Aye.
Motion is passed and carried. Discussion only. An ordinance amending the vacant structure registry. Was that Douglas?
Yeah.
All right, Doug?
So this is an ordinance that I've been working with the building department on. This is tied to the next item on the agenda, the Pro Champs contract. This would be to bring in a vendor to help us try to more accurately delineate all of the properties in the city that are vacant, to try to put together a more accurate vacant structure registry, but also so that we can identify those owners of those properties. And so our goal here would be to have better means of contact with the property owners to make sure that they're actually keeping the properties up to code. But I also wanted to introduce the gentleman that we've been working with at Pro Champs, the prospective vendor, Stan Urban, to speak to the committee.
Good evening, Mayor, Alderman, distinguished corporate council. My name is Stan Urban, and before we get into the Pro Champs, there was a little plug for Pro Champs earlier in the evening by the Lake County Land Bank. My history is I am a retired city manager of 18 years. I've worked with the land bank in the south suburban Cook County, and I can tell you, with or without Pro Champs, it's the best idea that's come to this state to help blighted communities. It costs nothing, and all the benefits are there. And yes, we do work well with all the land banks. That being said, this has been a long journey. We originally were approached by your treasurer in 2017. And I've since then been working with Mr. Pertel, your legal counsel, and your finance department. Why the finance department? I'm here to tell you tonight that if you go enter into a partnership with Pro Champs, the potential of a positive revenue stream for the city of Waukegan is in excess of $180,000 annually. You say, well, what is it going to cost us? If you close your eyes, you'll see what it'll cost you. Nothing. What we do is, the attorney said earlier, we register vacant and foreclosed properties. We ask you to pass an ordinance that says if you initiate a foreclosure in the city of Waukegan, you must register with Pro Champs and you pay an annual fee. It's that simple. We collect the money, we keep a portion of it, we send the balance to you monthly. More important than the money, putting that aside, staff will now know the names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails of every mortgagee that holds a foreclosed property in the city and of every vacant property in the city. Staff will be able to log into a web-based program. We're not going to be affecting your IT department with a bigger server. It's all web-based. All the information is right at their fingertips. And as a past retired city council member in my own hometown, I'm sure a lot of you have got a question. What's the catch? There is no catch. The company's been in business since 2009. We have over 200 municipalities nationally. I was found by the company when I was a city manager for the village of Dalton, a town half the size of yours, but we had more foreclosures in that town than you have in yours. And we'll ask a question, does any of the council members up here have any idea how many foreclosed properties are in this town? in excess of 450 active foreclosures. Third largest in the state. Second largest, Rockford, 1,279. City of Chicago, 19,000. Everybody says it's all because of the economics of the community. Lake Forest has 90. It's in every community there are foreclosures. We're here to help your building department, your code enforcement department by putting information at their fingertips to identify the property owners and get the blighted property fixed, repaired, have the grass cut, and ultimately give you some money. I'm open for questions.
Any questions to the motion? Alderman Florian.
I have two questions. First of all, how do you make money then if we don't pay for this service?
The registration, we ask for all that we require, not ask, by ordinance, names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails. We also require, according to ordinance, they must pay $300 twice a year. Some people, and I was one of them, said, well, why not just do it once a year? Charge $600. Because the properties are changing hands almost daily. To stay on top of them, we must require that they do it every 6 months. The fee we recommend is $300 twice a year. We collect the $300, we keep $100, we send you folks $200. That's how we make our money.
And then do you work to get these properties back, you know,
That's
off?
what you pay Mr. Pertel for.
Okay.
No, we do not have anything to do with that. We are,
You just do the
we give
registration?
you information, and it's up to you to do what you want to do with it. Where it works well with the land bank is once properties are identified that, for example, are abandoned, they're in foreclosure, now you know who the property owner is, you can give it to the land bank, they can go in and grab the property.
Thank you.
We needed you 10 years ago.
Yes.
I was still working as a city manager, sorry.
Yeah, and Mike and I spoke about this, and a lot of the time, our staff time, particularly code enforcement, when it comes to vacant properties and in moving forward with the demolition, is tracking down who the owners. I'm kind of briefly give you the current process now. There is a 1 letter we send out, 2 letter we send out, 3 letter we send out. From that, after that 3rd letter, we give it over to Doug. Doug does his preparing for the courts. Sometimes that information might have changed within that time. So then we had to go back to step 1. The longest problem, or the biggest problem that we have is making sure we give the proper notification to these vacant homeowners before we destroy. As most of you have already seen, we've gone through this process, and it didn't turn, one time it didn't turn out in our favor. By having someone else independently do this for us, we're able to then look, send those notices out, the once, the twice, we know exactly where it's going. And the every 6 months, why is that important? Someone could buy those taxes, own it, never put the deed in, and we're sending it back to the owner that's really on file. Because that's really all we have to work with. So when Mike suggested that we go to this process, let's get it done. We're spending too much time spinning our wheels trying to get who is the owner of these properties. And it's killing us. It's delaying our entire process. Hence, 10 years. Alderman Florian. 7, I can give you 7, and I see Alderman Mosio, 912. I was an alderman since 1999. 912 is still there. This is just crippling, not just Waukegan, cities throughout the country. It's just hurting us real bad. Alderman Mosio.
Yeah, during the housing crash, we'd get calls about grass and whatnot, and we'd call it in, and it would take staff forever to try to find out who owned it. We always said, every piece of property is owned by somebody. Somebody's got to keep it up. We come to find out, it was just an arduous task to really try to nail down who owned it.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the grass is 2 feet, then it's 3 feet, then it's 4 feet, and everything's falling apart, and people are calling the city saying, why aren't you doing something about it? And you're like, we can't find out who owns it. People didn't believe you. They didn't believe it, but it's a long task sometimes to really cut back to find out who owned it to get the person. So then what happens is, city has to spend money to send a crew or hire out a crew to go over and take care of the property. So it's a lose-lose for us with this. This sounds obviously like a great idea because it doesn't, our staff will not be bogged down with it. Another 2 things, too. Also, it will help us out maybe a little bit because we know how many vacant properties are. That also can help us with water, our budget for water. This is how much water we're not getting because this house is vacant. We're not getting any revenue from it.
That's absolutely.
Also, too, I don't know in the new garbage contract, we have the old one, we didn't pay for vacant homes.
We don't now, but we don't have an accurate list.
Right, so in the garbage contract, we pay per home. But
Right.
if we can give the garbage company a list, an accurate list of vacant homes, which this gentleman will provide us, that is a cost cutting on the garbage end too. So this is a win-win situation for the city. This is a no-brainer in my mind. Like I said, we needed you 10 years ago.
Alderman, you bring up an interesting point. When I was a city manager, besides the blighted property, our collection rate in the utility department was less than 75%. What we did is we gave access to the utility manager to the webpage so that when they send the letter out to the house that was vacant or in foreclosure and they're not paying the water bill either, now you will have access to send it directly to the bank who is ultimately responsible. Collection rates jumped almost 20%.
Awesome. All right. It sounds like, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your
that.
time.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
No, this was for discussion
Oh,
on the mayor.
I'm sorry. There it is. Item D, motion to approve contract.
And that was another, that's part of the same thing.
So we wrapped it all in one.
Yep.
We got a twofer. All right. Motion by Alderman Bolton, second by Alderman Kirkwood to adjourn. Are those, public comments? None at this, yes, sir. And it's public comments regarding this topic, correct?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, sir.
No, okay. Council meeting, I think you want to. All right. 3 minutes, David, come on.
No worries. I can keep it short.
Okay.
Just one thing, just looking over the agreement for the pro champs gentleman that was just presenting, it does have in there the terms of termination. It's a 2-year agreement with automatic renewal. I know automatic renewal was something we're trying to stay away from in terms of contract agreements, so that's just something to keep in mind and look at. As Bob would mention, those are like the evergreening contracts, I believe is what we called them.
Yep.
So automatic renewals is something that we wanted to stay away from, and that's in the agreement itself. So make note. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Motion by Alderman Florian, second by Alderman Kirkwood. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion passed and carried. Council meeting will start exactly at 7, everybody. Thank
What
you.
about
We have a public
annexation
hearing between
remark?
here and then.
Right now, 6:45.
All right, 6:45, public hearing.
For what?